Before we get into this video, guys, make sure that you go and follow me on Instagram at TraplordRoss. I try and reply to as many DMs as possible, and I've got a lot of merch giveaways coming up soon. Appreciate it. Usually, when you hear that a rapper grew up on a farm, you might imagine them munching on some wheat, freestyling behind the barn, or pushing a pimped out Lambo truck with spinning rims. However, British drill rapper Headie One grew up on a very different kind of farm. Specifically, the troubled Broadwater Farm estate in Tottenham, London. For all the American viewers, you can think of it as O-Block with tea and biscuits. The Broadwater Farm estate is of course notorious for its riots, crime and civil unrest over the years, mainly as a result of the British government outright ignoring deprivation and racism which had plagued the area for decades, leaving the estate and the impressionable young men growing up there to fall into ruin. However, today's story isn't one about a young man from a rough estate getting drawn into a life of crime and sitting out a life sentence. Today's story is one of a young man growing up on a rough estate, falling into a life of crime, and then realizing he was on the wrong path and making a change, deciding to go a different route and coming out of the other end of that experience as the most iconic rapper to ever jump on a booming UK drill beat. This is the story of how Headie One became the king of UK drill. Headie One famously got the nickname Heads as a young man, mainly due to his large round head's resemblance to the iconic British 50p coin. Real talk, a young Headie One was out here looking like a creator character with all of the head stats maxed out. And of course, for a man whose mind is literally shaped like money, it's no surprise that growing up money was on his mind. Street money, that is. Of course, the temptation to dip into the street life was strong for a young Heads growing up on that notorious Broadwater Farm estate. Because beyond the riots that I mentioned earlier, the estate has also been notorious over the past few decades for its gang activity, with Tottenham gang law stretching all the way back to the 70s, when a crew named the Tottenham Mandem formed on the estate. And much like the gangs the BDs and the GDs in Chicago that birthed the drill community over there, the gangsters in the blocks of Tottenham also realized early that they could make clean money in the music industry setting up record labels. Initially, the Tottenham Mandem and their affiliates started out the North Star Music Group in the 2000s after being inspired by the success of the So Solid crew. Over the following decade, street crews in Tottenham fragmented into smaller subsets, with some of them being much more focused on the music than the streets. And one of these was known as Star Gang, which is why you might hear Headie in some of his very early tracks repeating the catchphrase Starish. The Star Gang were known for road rap, a term for UK rappers that would talk about the real-life street situations that they observed on their blocks in their raps long before the term drill had even been coined. Anyway, speaking of coins, our 50p headed protagonist Headie One seemed to be a part of the Star Gang collective back when he was first rapping as a teen under the name Heads. Oh, just look how sweet young Heads looks here. I mean, just look at that cute face. I couldn't even imagine him splashing down an op. I bet back then the only points he was scoring was in a competition for the most handsome boy in year 9. Pause. Anyway, Heads would go into the studio with his Star Gang mates as early as age 13 and 14, essentially just taking the rap game for a joker's first. But as he grew up, he found himself seemingly oscillating between putting in work in the streets and putting in work in the studio. Getting in trouble, catching a case, getting locked up, and then coming out again vowing to take the music game seriously. Now, it's unclear exactly what all of Headie's offenses were when he was a juvenile, but looking at old tweets from the same Twitter account that he uses today, we can see him posting his mailing address from when he was locked up in a youth offenders institution as early as 2012, with Headie saying himself in 2018 that he had been to jail 3 times at that point, 2 of which would have been before he turned 18 and not subject to public record. But anyway, it's not Headie's street credentials that are really the most impressive thing about him, because even since he was a teenager, it was that ability to transform the street situations that he'd seen and been in into slick, expressive road raps showed that he always had the potential to go the distance. Thankfully, a great deal of old songs and freestyles exist from back in the day when Headie used to go by Heads. And of course, he always appeared alongside his OFB, or original farm boys, homies including RV, who for the record is probably my personal favourite UK drill rapper. Now, RV and Heads appeared together on numerous low-budget recordings of early street freestyles like this Tottenham cypher from way back in 2010, where a young Heads waxes lyrical about the virtues of chain snatching.
Not yet a veteran, but I'm old in these lost blocks. Come try floss and get your chain pop.
Then of course we've got the 2011 track Youngers in Farm, where Heads drops humorous lines about pulling straps on his ops in a way that affects their face the same way Botox would.
Before you start banging, let your balls drop, cause when you see the strap, your face will stiffen. Botox.
Also, you might have noticed the numerous red bandanas on display in that video. Well, it turns out that the Star Gang and other Tottenham street sets used to kind of identify with the Blood Gang from the US, though this was more through fashion and not through any real affiliation with the US Bloods. You know, kind of like setting up a local local franchise at the Bloods. Anyway, over the years, a young Heads was taking his red bandana all over the block, doing freestyles to anyone with a camera that would hit that red button. There was this Street Corners TV session where young Heads was all too eager to tell you about his big stick.
Big stick on my waist if I'm after them. I'll turn you old news like David Beck's, shirt left red and white like Darren Bent. So wear your headgear like Peter Check. Head's got the tech with a Rambo, left right, watch my talent go through his chest.
He did a no chit chat freestyle for MCTV in 2011. Of course, that was followed by a diss track against OFB's longest running ops Wood Green, both of which I unfortunately can't play you because they're rapping over copyright beats. And then there's this November 2011 statement session freestyle where Headie seemed to get a little bit flustered, out here looking like the turn my headphones up guy from Chappelle's show.
Fuck it, listen, look. Listen.
It's alright, Heads, you'll get him next time, mate, you get him next time. And to be fair, he did, coming through with his final freestyle of 2011 on Pac-Man TV, titled NP to Farm, where he ironically rapped about the Fed's desire to have him in prison, comparing that experience to being locked into a day-to-day office job.
Feds want me in that box, cubicle, I'm pissed I can't have these pigs clocking what I used it for.
But unfortunately, little did Heads know, very soon the Feds would get exactly what they wanted. As we know from those earlier tweets, Heads spent a period of time locked up in a Young Offenders Institute in 2012, but thankfully by the end of that year he triumphantly returned to the rap game with a fresh home December 2012 freestyle.
Big H, fresh home, fresh home. Actions speak louder than the words and I'm the evidence. Black crep and a matching track, that's my preference.
See, he was showing tracksuit love from the very start. He followed that up with another song, Awan, which came across as a much more laid-back and introspective affair than some of his earlier road raps. And this was perhaps a subtle hint at the rich, deep block storytelling that we would later come to know and love from Headie One. And of course, the track Awan seemed to be the first time that Heads debuted his iconic Wan ad-lib that would later form a key part of his repertoire. However, the rest of 2013 was fairly quiet with very few releases coming from Heads. Who knows, perhaps this was when he spent that second spell in a Youth Offenders Institute that he's hinted at in other interviews. But once again, by 2014, Heads was back with a bang, dropping a heavy black box freestyle on New Year's 2014 and continuing the momentum throughout that year by releasing his first proper mixtape, Heads or Tails. Get it? Because he looks like a coin. Good sense of humor on this one. Headie also dropped a lo-fi music video for the mixtape's title track, where he seemed to effortlessly glide over the beats while talking about stabbings and being remanded by the Feds.
Violated Monday, Tuesday stabbed up, Wednesday they charged him, Thursday remanded.
And in this video, he also appeared to be flashing a skeng concealed in a JD bag. This seeming to be the start of Headie's long-running habit of keeping tings in bags but never busting them or showing them. Of course, one has to ask, if the ting is in a bag but it never gets bust, did it ever even exist in the first place? I believe the term for that question is Schrodinger's gap. Anyway, unfortunately for Heads, after releasing his mixtape, he seemed to have come up tails on that coin flip, because later in 2014 he would get caught up in a jam that would see his music career put on hold for an entire 3 years. Headie actually got stopped by the cops all the way up in Aberdeen, Scotland, after getting off of a train and into a taxi with a duffel bag. The cops searched him and found around £40,000 worth of heroin and cocaine seemingly being transported for a county lines drug operation. As well as that, he also had a knife on him, which is not a good look in England. Headie's defense in court was that he was only acting as a courier to try and pay off debts to drug dealers in London. But sadly, the court didn't buy it. Heads was duly sentenced to a hefty 30 months in prison, where he would sit with nothing to do but reflect on what had gone wrong in the streets and the huge opportunity he had missed by not being able to pursue his music career. And after that long time riding this jail term, when Headie got out, he decided to take his music career seriously this time and go all in. And little did Headie know, this would be the best decision he would ever make, taking his first step on the path to becoming the greatest rapper the UK drill community had ever seen. What makes Headie shine bright just like his own balding head isn't his bleak criminal past. It's his impeccable ability to speak about his past life of crime in such rich detail that paints a raw tapestry for the listener to imagine. And when Headie got out of jail in 2017, he was released right into the height of the UK drill movement, ditching his corny old road rap style beats for the booming and aggressive instrumentals that UK drill producers were popularizing at the time and would eventually export over to New York drill rappers like Pop Smoke, Fabio Foreign, and technically Drake. So Headie combined his excellent writing with a fresh melodic flow and started rapping over the hottest beats that were in the city at the time, accidentally stumbling upon a perfect recipe for UK drill bangers. And this was the perfect setup for Headie One to blow straight out the gate. Of course, while he was still in jail in 2016, his OFB buddy RV, who I mentioned earlier, released their first joint mixtape, Sticks and Stones, which put the wheels in motion and gave fans a little taste of what was to come, giving Headie the perfect circumstances to go straight to the top when he got out of jail. So fresh out the can in February 2016, 2017, he came straight back to the rap game with his big comeback tune, Losses and Winnings, debuting his much upgraded flow, hard delivery, and a new repertoire of infectious ad-libs, such as his famous turn, of course, one, and who could forget I love doing that one. As Headie described in his own Music and Road documentary, when he got out and released this song, the huge response that it got was enough for him to know immediately that music was actually a viable career option.
That had like a good reaction. Like, I had people that messaging me and that saying I should do more.
So he did, grinding relentlessly through 2017 with big appearances, including popping up on a Mad About Bars session with Kenny Allstar, a Fire Street Heat freestyle, and then linking back up with RV once again for their next joint mixtape, Drillers and Trappers. And together they kept that momentum going, linking up for a massive joint OFB crib session with my uncle Tim Westwood, and dropping big new tracks like Live in the T, where Headie One seemed to be getting a live haircut on his block. And then of course there is the iconic track Golden Boot, where Headie compared scoring points on his ops in the drill blocks to scoring points on the football pitch. So Headie was on the way to being an icon in the UK drill scene, but it was in 2018 when he would reach that top tier, launching his first headline show.
Yeah, the new year came, we done our headline show, like a little 300 cap, and sold out, like that, bam.
And accompanying those big shows with big music, dropping the solo mixtape The One, which was a breakout hit. And of course, if you know The One, you'll know that that project included the infamous song Know Better, which, well, where do I start? In January 2018, Headie One had a gig at Bedfordshire University. This is in Luton, which isn't far from London. After the show, he seemingly pulled a nice-looking redhead who happened to be a student living at the university's halls, or dorms to you American viewers. Headie was actually seen going into the university dorms with the girl on social media and even seemed to post about it himself. However, unfortunately, either through posting on the internet or a complete setup, this allowed Headie One's ops to get the drop on him. And apparently some ops from Wood Green turned up and duly pressed Headie, recording the entire incident on Snapchat. Now, I can't show you any of the footage because of YouTube's community guidelines, but basically, these guys came through and confronted Headie One in the dorm. Headie put his hand in his satchel as if to communicate he was packing some heat, because of course we know from his earlier music videos, he's got a habit of keeping things in bags. However, the ops didn't buy it and proceeded to slap Headie about on camera while screaming, "Boss your ting then, G." Headie proceeded to do the dash like pretty much anybody would in the same situation. I mean, he was cornered and outnumbered, and frankly, he was lucky that things weren't even worse. Headie seemed to get away after being chased off the scene by the ops, who even seemed to smash up his car and managed to get their hands on his phone. Now, the public way that this scene had played out on social media obviously led to a lot of people clowning Headie One and saying that he had taken a massive L for this incident. However, those people wouldn't be lasting for long, because the very next day a shooting occurred in the territory belonging to those ops, Wood Green, where apparently a black Mercedes A-Class pulled up on a 19-year-old man in the Wood Green shopping centre parking lot. Someone in the Mercedes produced a handgun, firing several times before driving away, leaving the victim seriously injured and needing to be airlifted to hospital. We saw the likes of Headie's OFB comrade RV posting about it on social media, as well as apparently even driving past the scene later on that evening with his windows down, blasting the OFB anthem, "Red Card Dem! Red Card Dem!"
Red card them, man, I feel red card them, man, I feel red card them.
That's a big tune, that one. Go look that one up. Headie One even tweeted about the incident, saying first half, Headie gets set up by gal, second half, excellent finish like Van Nistelrooy. Of course, we all know that retaliation is a must, ain't no maybes, ifs or buts. And the British media later described this retaliatory incident as all-out gang war, with the BBC going as far to release an article titled "The Rapper's Track That Sparked a Wave of Killings." Now, for the record, that article is complete dog shit and just desperately tries to link a handful of unrelated incidents in the nearby area to Headie and his music. And while 3 men in their early 20s were arrested over this incident in early February, apparently they were all released under investigation, and it doesn't appear that anybody was ever convicted of this. And I'd just like to make it very clear there is absolutely zero evidence that RV or Headie One were involved in this incident, and let's not forget there's always the big possibility that this was just a completely unrelated shooting, as there's many in London, and maybe Headie and his boys were just being opportunists claiming it to try and save face for the embarrassing incident that had happened the day before, right? Thing is, it wasn't just the streets where retaliation appeared to be occurring, because Headie One also retaliated on Wax the following day, dropping the scathing response song Know Better. Produced by 808 Mello, who of course would go on to be Pop Smoke's premier beatmaker, this song was all about the supposed L that Headie had taken over at Luton, with Headie saying, "They say I took a L in L, but shh made a W in W," the W of course referring to Wood Green, where OFB's ops are from and where that shooting went down. The track Know Better also popularised the massive trend in UK drill for rappers to say shh instead of increasing incriminating words or names, i.e. in No Better saying next day shh got shh by shh, or of course him saying that he had his shh in the bag, but then going on to say that he knows better than to let off the shh when the ops are recording him on Snapchat, because of course getting caught with a firearm in the UK is not a good look and would have led to him getting a mandatory 4-year sentence. Anyway, the track No Better blew up like nothing RV and Headie One had ever done before. Hell, it even ended up being famously used on the runway at Burberry's Autumn-Winter 2019 fashion show at London Fashion Week. Headie attributed the success of the song purely to how much of a raw description of a real situation it was. And whilst fans were itching to know the meaning behind every shh that left Headie's lips on that song, Headie hilarious dodged questions on this incident so hard that it literally became a meme. This of course being a reference to his iconic Not For The Radio interview, where Headie dodged questions with all of the gusto of Boris Johnson being asked how many children he has.
What was the story behind that? Was there a particular reason why you was at that uni? Everyone seems to think you was there for a girl and you got surprised or something like that. What was the actual situation there? If you can shed any light on it.
Obviously, not much light can be shed on that one there, car. It's a bit of a sticky one still. Obviously, right now anyway. Maybe in the future that can change. But I don't know, it's not everything went what it seems still. Obviously everyone had it was a situation still, but yeah. Everything went what it seems still. I'm trying to put it in a nutshell, basically. I don't know.
Oh, okay, Headie. So with his lips firmly sealed, the legend of Headie One went far beyond the streets and into the boardrooms of British record labels. And soon after this No Better fiasco, Headie would be signing a major deal that would take him out of the farm blocks for good and straight to the top of the British music industry. After seeing Headie's No Better, Sony's Relentless Records said, hey, let's have a piece of this drill business, swiftly signing Headie One and releasing the track No Better on their major label within only weeks of him taking that violation in Luton. Hey, that probably helps explain why the track No Better didn't end up getting taken down by the feds, unlike dozens of other UK drill songs about retaliating on the ops that YouTube have removed on behalf of the Met Police. Anyway, linking up with the label was a boss move, and they immediately started putting Headie in positions to win, making the rest of his 2018 filled with W after W. He jumped on a fire in the booth with Charlie Sloth, he landed cool brand tie-ins like this Puma and JD Sports in-store, which was ironically vilified by the Times newspaper for its crack den theme, as the event featured a bunch of fake trap money, an actual trap phone as a gift on arrival, and even genuine bando-style seating. Sounds lit to me. From there, Headie ended up landing a feature on the Belly Squad track, Missing, that ended up hitting 84 on the UK charts. He then got tapped up to feature on Kenny Allstar's single Tracksuit Love, and in case you don't know, Kenny Allstar's kind of like a British DJ Khaled if he was sponsored by Specsavers and Rogaine. Anyway, Headie's follow-up mixtape The 1-2 dropped in June and ended up hitting 32 on the UK albums chart, spawning the big tracks Brony and Banter On Me. But it was in 2019 that Headie One would transcend the drill scene and quite literally rise to the top of the British rap game. All with a little help of former Drake fascination, chart topper, and confirmed Tooth owner, Dave. Dave and Headie's collaboration 1800 ended up hitting 6 on the UK singles chart. This being the highest charting position for a UK drill artist at the time. I mean, that is if you're not counting Drake. 1800 was a certified banger and was made very catchy by its gnarly lyrics, which frankly I could not have imagined being in a top 10 song in the UK ever. It's got lines about shitting out drugs and accidentally flushing them, and the main chorus of the song is about spending 1800 quid on a rusty shotgun. Headie and Dave out here looking like the Tottenham version of Antiques Roadshow. Headie kept the momentum going, following up 1800 by commercially releasing the follow-up mixtape Drillers and Trappers 2 with RV, which ended up hitting 21 on the UK albums chart, and coming along with the cold and kind of hilarious single Match Day, where Headie went all in on that same concept that we heard earlier on Golden Boot, comparing scoring points on your rock to scoring points on the football pitch, with some of the most hilarious bars that I have ever heard. Of course, not many people know that actually as a child, Headie One had footballing aspirations, seemingly nearly getting a shot at going pro, but those dreams were tragically cut short after an ankle injury. Hey, maybe this bit of backstory explains why he loves comparing drilling to football so goddamn much. Anyway, Match Day scored big for Headie One and RV, landing at 86 on the UK singles charts, which doesn't sound that good, but for an underground drill song that is literally about drilling and chinging your ops, for that to land on the chart is frankly a miracle. Anyway, after Match Day and collabing with Dave, Headie was on a roll with the collabs. Next up, tapping in fellow Tottenham legend and amateur pornographer Skepta for the collab track Back to Basics. That landed at number 42 in the UK charts and even ended up on GTA 5 when after an update they gave Skepta his own radio station. So now you can ching and shoot ops in GTA 5 and listen to Headie One and Skepta talking about shinging and drilling ops in real life. Headie then popped up, breaking his own record, appearing on the track I Spy with Krept and Conan, which ended up going number 18 on the singles chart. And with all of these W's stacking up and building momentum for his commercial mixtape debut, Music and Road, Headie's biggest release to date hitting number 5 on the UK albums chart. Music and Road actually came with a very cool cover where Headie wears a kind of see-through mask. The idea is kind of that it's a deep metaphor representing the duality between covering your face as a driller, remaining anonymous on the roads, but yet at the same time putting your face to your music and speaking openly about your past in the pursuit of fame and riches to try and leave that road life behind. It's deep, alright? It's deep. And even the real keen-eyed drillologists, i.e. just me, might have even noticed that these clear masks have appeared in OFB videos as early as 2016 on the track Off Your Melon with Cash that Headie One appeared on but was not in the video because he was still in jail at this point. Anyway, the mixtape Music and Road featured the headline single Both, which peaked at number 13 on the UK singles chart, which also came along with a dope music video where Headie seemed to set fire to a goddamn Range Rover. I guess he didn't like the interior. But unfortunately for Headie, at the very height of his career, and not long after a huge headline show at the Brixton Academy where he brought out Skepta, Dave, Conan, and even your boy Trap Law Ross was in the audience that night. But unfortunately, at the height of his fame, he was locked up once again, all for an incident in June where him and OFB younger Bando K were pulled over by the police.
I swear to you heads, I see them pre, bro, they all spun their heads back.
Yeah, I thought you used to get stabbed here everywhere.
I'm not doing none of that, bro.
So you are? We're here to try and prevent it.
But it's why, because we're black, bro.
Apparently during a search, Headie One did a runner from the cops and even was seen chucking a knife away, which was unfortunately found along with Headie himself, who was duly banged to rights and sentenced to another 6 months in jail for possessing a knife. Luckily for the fans, Headie ended up getting out of jail around the same time as 6ix9ine and went on to have an incredible run, leaving jail in a chopper and riding home in a new Bentley. Now, we're going to completely gloss over the dreadful gang project that he dropped after he got out of jail. Now, you know what? I'm going to blame the label for that. Awful, awful project. But of course, fans quickly forgot about that and Headie got his real redemption when he released the banging comeback song Rose Gold. This quickly got a Drake cosign on Instagram, and by July, that Rose Gold cosign had blossomed into a platinum bust down. And day one, Headie fans rejoiced when they finally heard Drake drop an iconic verse on the latest Headie One track, the Only You freestyle. And Drake truly brought that fire, dissing Kanye and Pusha T in his verse, and even doing his best Arabic accent, which I assume he did on purpose so that once COVID is over, Headie One can go and do shows in Dubai and get that hefty bag, since he probably can't go to America with all those convictions. Genuinely though, Drake went super hard on this song. It was an absolute drill classic, and after the song released, Drake even called Headie One the best drill artist in the world. That's facts. The Only You hit style hit number 5 on the UK singles charts, another record for Headie, and even went on to chart in around 10 other countries. That track will live on Headie One's new album Edna, along with his latest single Ain't It Different, which only recently just smashed through Headie's charting record once again, becoming a top 3 hit in the UK along with help from Stormzy and AJ Tracey. Headie truly paid the cost to be the boss, and he knows it. After all, only a week before that Drake collab released, Headie announced on Twitter that he is indeed the undisputed champion of the drill genre. And he's not wrong, but the only thing he has yet to achieve in his career is a number 1. Sorry, I mean a number 1. Thanks for watching. Shout out Headie One. Peace out.